Hello again and welcome to Mordian Mondays, episode number 8. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with what this series is, this is where I document my progress on the Great Mordian Restoration Project, which is me repainting, revamping, fixing and restoring to its former glory the Mordian 50th Rifles, which is my pure infantry Mordian army. And the army which this channel owes its name to. Now, for many years, my army of pure infantry Mordians, the Mordian 50th Rifles, have fought against many enemies, have gone to many tournaments, have travelled up and down the country, and as a result, they were and are in a very bad and battered state. And to the point where I was actually kind of embarrassed to use them on the channel, and so using these videos as motivation, I post my progress every week on my attempt to revamp and revitalise that army. There's about 400, roughly 300 to 400 infantry, if you take into account every last model, 300 to 400 infantry models in the army. The aim at the moment is to get to a workable 2,000 point list, pure infantry, which requires about 250 infantry. And I've been working on my first platoon, and I've been posting week after week sort of infantry squads that I've been completing, but I decided this week to take a crack at a couple of characters, 3 characters to be precise. I did a classic Minotaurum priest, I did a classic, no longer in production, Cadian lieutenant, and I did the new Anvil Industries Commissar with Plasma Pistol and Power Fist. For those keen-eyed observers amongst you, you will notice that the Commissar's base isn't done, simply because it's late on a Sunday night me recording this video, and I just haven't done his base yet. But everything else on the model is completed. So yeah, I've added the command element. One of the big bits of fluff behind the restored Mordians is that the Minotaurum, the ecclesiarchy, has regained control of the regiment and is making sure that the Mordian 50th stay on the straight and narrow. And this actually has reflections in the real life list, which is I will no longer be using any psychers. You see, when I first got into competitive 40k or back into 40k as an adult, I was like, no psychers. Psychers are for heretics and witches and for elder players. No psychers. I was all about being, pure, sticking to my principles. No psychers, no flyers, nothing like that. And as time went on and I went to more and more tournaments, my principles were eroded away, and I started taking things like psychers. I started chasing the meta quite hard. And so, sort of symbolically, I've got rid of all the psych. And I used to have lots of priests in my army back in the 5th edition codex when priests were amazing. Not 5th edition, 6th edition codex. And I used to have a lot of priests in my armies, but those priests sort of fell out when 8th edition came along, and end of 7th edition, and as I was trying to get more and more tactical, more and more tournament competitive, I stopped using priests and I started using psychers instead. And now that symbolically, these new priests are here to make sure that doesn't happen. It's a representation of the Mordian 50th Rifles being purified, being brought back under the light. So that's why you'll see lots of Minotaurum priests in this army, and you will see lots of commissars and lord commissars. Make sure that all the heresy, all the taint of the witch has been removed from the regiment. So that's kind of the fluff behind it. That's kind of what I'm going for with the new fluff of the regiment. I in terms of looking at the painting and the modelling for these models, the officer obviously was easy enough. he gets painted up in the same colours as everyone else because he's a junior officer. I'm using him as a platoon commander with a power fist and las pistol. Nothing too complicated there. The priest, I thought long and hard. And the commissar, especially the commissar, do I make these models stand out with unique uniforms, or do I have them matching the army and they can have distinguishing features, but they, generally speaking, match the uniform of the army? Now, obviously, I went for matching the uniform, and the reason for this is kind of twofold. There's different reasons why I did it on the priest and why I did it on the commissar. On the commissar, I actually was originally going to have the model like black as night commissar, and honestly, it just didn't look very good. It just didn't look appropriate. The model just looked unfinished. So I ended up having to add more and more colour to it. And I actually do have a slight criticism of the Anvil Industry commissar, which is not, I don't want to criticise models because I love Anvil Industries, but got to be honest with you guys, this guy has so few distinguishing features. Like, he's quite a plain and simple model, which is good on an infantryman, but when it's a special character, you need something that can stand out. Like, all his armour is the same across the whole model. I kind of actually struggled with painting this guy. This guy actually took the longest out of all of them. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not entirely satisfied with it, but in the end, all black just wasn't going to do it at all. So I decided that as a commissar, he wants to lead by example with the men, and the commissars want the men to respect them. And so whilst they are separate from the chain of command, they want to show the men that they are with them, fighting the terrors and horrors of the Emperor. And so symbolically, these commissars have adopted the colours of the regiment that they're with. Only, they've still got the distinctive black coat, and they've got the distinct sort of red banded black peaked hat. But they have adopted the colours to show that they are fighting alongside the regiment. They are not aloof of the men. They are part of it. Because one of the big things I want to go for with the Mordians is, and this is the big part of Mordian fluff, really big part, which is, whilst they look fancy and the officers look fancy, like they would be aloof and aristocratic and above the men, the complete opposite is actually true. And whilst the Mordians wear fancy uniforms, they are completely about substance, about function. So they are not pompous, useless officers. They are not pompous, useless officers in the Iron Guard. They are all extremely well disciplined and well drilled, and they always fight from the front alongside their men. And these commissars basically are doing the same thing. Now with the priest, it's pretty much the same thing. The priests have adopted the colours of. Now, what I wasn't sure, and maybe you guys could let me know what you think. I wasn't sure if to have, since the Ecclesiarchy have come along and they've sort of half taken over the regiment. Like, in the regiment now, you have the officers that order the men, but the commissars and the priests are the ones that are kind of unofficially in charge of what's going on. Maybe I'll have some fluff later on about why that might have some bad ramifications. But there's like a bit of a political struggle going on at the moment with the officers having to be on their best behaviour to prove that they're still loyal, and they've got rid of all the witches and they've purged all the heretics. And so the commissars kind of also want to exert their influence, but so do the Minotaurum. So it's going to be kind of interesting power dynamic in my fluff and my headcanon. Now I'm not sure if I'm going to go with the priests. The priests themselves were the ones that originally had the green robes, and when they took over the Mordian 50th, they were responsible for the the uniform change. I'm not sure whether to go with that, or if to go with, similar to the commissars, they want to show solidarity with the men that they are leading, and so they are adopting these green robes in order to stand alongside the men and show that we're all one team fighting for the Emperor. I'm not sure which one to go for yet. Ecclesiarchy imposing its will is a bit more grim dark, and I kind of like that. Adds a bit of interesting. It makes the fluff for my regiment a little less one-dimensional, because it can be very easy. It can be very easy to write your own fluffy regiment and to have your regiment as infallible, perfect, awesome fighting machines, and that's great. But not everyone's custom regiment can be like that, and it's quite nice to have flaws within the regiment. And so I kind of like the idea that the flaws. There is a power struggle going on in the Mordian High Command, and the Mordians will follow orders no matter what. But in the Mordian High Command, there's this three-way power struggle between the commissars, the priests, and the Mordian officers. So I kind of like that. I feel that's a bit more grim dark. But obviously, when the shit hits the fan, they all fight properly. But off the battlefield, politically, there could be some machinations going on. What do you guys think? Do you think that'd be kind of cool to have that as a bit of headcanon, or just to keep it nice and simple? What do you guys think? Now, that's the painting, modelling side of things. What about sort of upcoming tactics, news, lists, that kind of thing? Well, I have submitted my list for the tournament I'm going to next weekend, which is the Caledonian Revolution 2019 at Element Games. I've submitted my list, and I know last week I asked you guys what list you're going to take. And a few of you did say you should take the Black Tide, and I did think about taking the Black Tide, I'll be honest with you. But what put me off was the advent of Chaos Knights. Now, I'm not going to go there expecting to win the tournament. I never do. I go there to put on a good showing for Mono Guard or Mono Faction. And I was going to take the Lazarus Crusade, my Black Tide, but the problem is that everyone I know who's going there with Knights is taking Chaos Knights, and they're all looking at taking double Gatling Cannon Knights. So I realised that taking my pure infantry Black Templar army, I was just going to lose badly in that tournament, and I don't want to go to a tournament and spend, and potentially lose sort of four or five games. I don't want to do that. I mean, I might do that anyway, but I don't want to do that. And so I do think the Black Tie would do okay. The thing is when you go into a 2-day tournament, you kind of have to take into account that it's not like you're just going to a 1-day tournament. You can have a laugh, you can win or lose a few games, who cares, for roll some dice. When it's a 2-day tournament, it's kind of like if you submit a crap list that you're going to be not a crap list, but if you submit a list that you're going to be if you're not feeling it, you're going to be forced to use that list for 2 days, 5 games. You can't drop out, that's just not right. So with that in mind, I thought I'll take a fun list that is competitive and also might actually stand a chance. It's themed, but it might actually stand a chance against Chaos Knights. So I went for the Armageddon 234th. I went for my Steel Legion full tank mechanized list. And what I ended up... Now, it's interesting. With my Armageddon Steel Legion, I've kind of had a... It's weird. I actually have had a few problems with them. Being that when Chapter Approved 2018 came out, which I know is a few months ago now, but lots of points changes occurred, and I actually saved about 235 points in my list. So that's a lot of points, and I've been trying. I had some models that I hadn't really committed to either regiment, which, like my Manticore, like I had a spare Hellhound, and I tried using those in the list, and then I also tried using Yarrick in the list because I felt like no Armageddon list is really complete without Yarrick, and that's true. But I was finding that these units lacking. I found the Manticore on its own. It's The problem I was finding is I was finding single unit syndrome. A single hellhound wasn't really cutting the mustard. A single manticore wasn't really doing much for me. It's only one of each type of unit. With guard, we have to take multiples. So I was finding that was the problem I was having, and I found the manticore a bit too swingy as well. So I dropped, but I kept the manticore, and because I wanted some more anti-tank, and then I took Yarrick. And the problem I had with Yarrick was I didn't really have a good place for him in the list. His main thing being providing reroll ones to hit, which in my Steel Legion you'd think would be something I wouldn't really have. But the problem was that the tank commanders already reroll. Their order every turn is gunners kill on sight, so they're already rerolling ones to hit anyway. And then the conquerors typically shoot off into the sunset and reroll all hits, so they weren't using it. The sentinels I like to use to screen out. The sentinels don't operate in one place. They tend to be one in each sort of third of my deployment zone, which I can use to get good angles. They can hug an objective. They can push out to deny deep strikers. Because I've got to choose between a chimera full of guys to push out with or a sentinel. I'll typically use a sentinel. It's a bit cheaper, and it's just what they're designed for. So I was finding, I don't really need him for the reroll ones and sentinels. And then the chimeras again. The chimeras are often think of my tactics, my lone wolf tactics. I'm sending chimeras down flanks. I'm pushing up and I'm aggressive. It worked okay with the chimeras. What you have to understand is what you can crowd maybe 3 or 4 chimeras around Yarrick. Okay, great. I'm spending 100 points to give 4 chimeras reroll ones. It's not really the great investment of points. So I decided to drop Yarrick, and I decided rather than trying to shoehorn in some spare units I just had to bite the bullet, put my money where my mouth was, and commit some funding to this. So I actually this week went out and bought an extra Lehman Russ, because I only extra Lehman Russ and an extra Sentinel. And what I ended up doing is I only had 2 tank commanders in my list. And so what I decided to do was to take the 3rd tank commander with the Hammer of Sunderance. And then I had 50 points left over, roughly. I had about 40 points, but I moved 10 points around. And I got myself a 4th las cannon sentinel. So what you have there is I have 15 armoured vehicles and 60 infantry, which is quite good. What you have is I was looking to increase my anti-tank and increase my armour saturation, and I've done both. I've got a battle tank which is firing as many shots as a manticore every turn at a better ballistic skill, rerolling ones. It's all good there. So what is the final list that I'm taking to? And I'll try and put a link down in the description below if I remember. What is the final list that I'm taking to this tournament? Right. I'm taking 2 battalions and an outrider detachment, the fast attack one. Okay. Now traditionally I've taken a brigade, but I didn't want to take a 3rd heavy support choice. I didn't really have anything that I wanted to take. I could have taken a 3rd normal Lehman Russ, but when you've got the points, why wouldn't you upgrade a Lehman Russ to a tank commander, for example? So the 1st battalion is very expensive, and it is a specialist attachment, and it's a battalion, and I went for the Emperor's Fist Tank Company, and I just took that so I could get access to the relic battle cannon, which is my only relic I'm taking. Okay, so I took 3 tank commanders. I took 1 with battle cannon, which I am replacing for the Hammer of Sunderance, so I've got that nice flat 3 damage, and then I have 2 more tank commanders who have the Executioner plasma cannons. You'll recognise my Cromlech turrets. And all of those tanks have got a hull heavy bolter and sponson plasma cannons. And because I had 2 points left over, I gave the Hammer of Sunderland's tank commander a storm bolter. Now I know that's a bit of an odd choice because all my other vehicles have got heavy stubbers. The reason I went with the storm bolter is because I actually had a spare one from the Torox kit, and I put it on there and it looks really good. It really, it just looked better. It was more aesthetically pleasing. And what I like about my Armageddon 234th is that I put aside about 10-15 points for aesthetics, and even though they're not the best choices, they look good. And so and because it's not a super competitive army, I quite like I could be a bit fluffier in it places. But anyway, so 3 tank commanders, 1 battle cannon, 2 plasma cannons, and then hull heavy bolters and plasma cannon sponsons. That's my 3 HQ choices. 3 troop choices, 3 armoured fist squads, so Chimera, double heavy bolter, heavy stubber, and the squads have plasma gun, bolter, and then the rest have got las guns. Okay, to take advantage of the Armageddon Steel Legion 18-inch rapid fire. 2nd Battalion was just pretty bare bones. I took 2 company commanders. First one is the Warlord, who's got old grudges as the Warlord trait, and he has a bolt pistol and power sword. Again, that's the fluffy upgrades. I could give him the bolter. I almost put bolter down the list, but then I looked at the model and was like, he doesn't have a bolter. He has a bolt pistol, and I should really, not take the piss. Technically, if someone saw that, they could say to me, he hasn't got a bolter, he's got a bolt pistol, and the TO, if he was being an arsehole, could tell me to remove that model and I can't use it, which would be really bad. So I just went safe. 2nd company commander's got las pistol and power sword, and then 3 armoured fist squads with, again, bolter on the sergeant, plasma gun, 8 las guns, Chimera, double heavy bolter, heavy stubber. And the final bit is the Outrider detachment, which I took a 3rd company commander. I don't have, or I should say in the 2nd battalion I also had a Tech Priest engine seer as well. Because I've got so many tanks, I just take a Tech Priest because it's good to just be able to repair a couple of wounds. Between that and jury rigging, I tend to find that I get enough repairing done in turn. So I took a 3rd in the 3rd battalion, 3rd detachment, Outrider detachment. I took a 3rd company commander. He's orc head guy, and so he's got a bolt pistol and chainsword, and he is leading a 4 armored sentinels. Now, how you take 4 armored sentinels is you take 1 on its own in a single squadron. Same again, and then this 3rd unit you take 2 sentinels in a squadron, because you can do that with sentinels. You can take up to 3 in a squad. So that's how I got 4, all with las cannons, no sentinel chainswords. That's it. So the list is 2,000 points, bang on. It's 15 armoured vehicles. Oh, I should say I took, of course, in the 1st detachment, in the Emperor's Fist detachment, I took 2 Conquerors as well. 2 Lemurous Conquerors with hull heavy bolter and plasma cannon sponsons. So in total, I have 5 Lehman Russes. Okay, 3 tank commanders, 2 Conquerors. So that's a lot of re-rolls in that. And that's a lot of armour as well. That's a lot of toughness 8. That's 60 toughness 8, 3+ save wounds. Backed up by another from the Chimeras, 60. Again, another 60. Toughness 7, 3+ armor save wounds. So we've got 120 3+ armor save wounds. And then from the Sentinels, we've got another 24. Toughness 6, 3+ armor save. And everyone is ignoring AP -1 all the time, which is great. And all that, makes my vehicles even more durable. and all my infantry have got an 18-inch rapid fire range, which means I don't need to get too close. The list has maneuverability, it has firepower, it has, with old grudges, we should be able to, and an extra tank commander now, we should be able to put a dent in a knight list. Hopefully, if we go first, we'll definitely do some serious damage to it. And against Elder Flyer spam, well, at least we've got 3 tank commanders that can hit on 5s, rerolling 1s, and a couple of Conquerors which can hit on 6s, rerolling everything. So, fingers crossed, we should be able to throw enough lead in the sky to bring those, a couple of Elder Flyers down. It means I've got a fighting chance. I probably won't win though. So yeah, that's the list. That's what I've been painting. Now, just to let you know, I've had to buy and build, and I've done that already. The Lehman Russ and the Sentinel. That does mean that next week's Mordian Mondays will probably actually feature what I was painting, which will be those 2 vehicles. So it'll actually be an Armageddon Steel Legion Monday next week, more than likely, and I'll do a bit of a tournament overview in that video, and then do a proper in-depth tournament report later in that week. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. As always, please let me know what your painting progress has been, and let me know what you think of the list. I think the big weakness of the list is that it can get badly tied up in combat. If people tag things, that's going to start being a bad day for me. But if a lot of my firepower is kind of independent. I can spread my Russes out into 2 or 3 fire bases. My Chimeras can be spread out into 3. I think I can basically spread out into 3 fire bases. So, with that in mind, I'd like to think it'd be kind of difficult for my opponent to tie up all 3 fire bases, and I only need 1 realistically to stay alive in order to stay untagged by like flying stuff. I only need 1 to stay alive in order for me to be able to really bring enough firepower to bear to clear out enemy skimmers and stuff. So, what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments, and of course, I'll see you guys next time.